Hello, and we are back. The Sko Buffs SportsCast, Leo Rivera, Harris, and Simeon. We have returned after quite a while. We hadn't been on camera in a while. I know we did a few
Been
episodes
a
last
minute.
year with me and Mason LeBeau. He's graduated. So me and Leo are back to bring you the best in Colorado sports, and we're going to make this podcast better than ever. We're going to have guests galore, coaches, players, writers, everything you need to know from Buff Sports. We're gonna get that rolling. How are you doing, Leo?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic, Harrison. Had a good rejuvenating break, caught up on some sleep. I know you did too, and ready to hit the ground running on this semester. And I think it's gonna be a successful and busy one.
Yeah, I'm still kind of catching up on that sleep. It's been a little cold once I got back here. I'm obviously from Louisiana, where I wouldn't go outside if we were anywhere near that temperature. So I've been chilling over the weekend, but excited to get rolling. We have our first meeting club wide on Wednesday, and then our
Yep.
show on Friday. We have plenty of content coming, and there's plenty of change now in the university. We have the transfer portal going on, as we'll obviously be about to talk about, but also, I wanted to mention a little bit before, a new athletic director, Fernando Lobo from New Mexico. What were your takeaways? I know you were at the opening press conference for him. How do you like Lobo so far?
I'm very excited to see what Lobo can bring to this university, Harrison, not only from just a recruiting NIL standpoint and what he's going to provide on those ends of the floor, but just his relationship, his personability, the fact that he actually took time after the press conference to shake hands, to speak with all the donors, to speak with any media members who wanted to go and talk to him one on one. I know me and Liam Howard had the chance to go and do that and meet him, and he just seemed very, passionate about learning about the university, getting involved in the culture of Boulder and the people, and wanting to propel the university forward.
Yeah, no, he checks every box, honestly, that Colorado would have wanted to initiate from Rick George, finding a successor for him. He's young, he's ambitious, and he's successful. He has a good resume at several high-profile universities at Texas, at Ohio State, started as an equipment manager at Florida. So he's kind of a football-centric guy,
Yep.
but still has made an effort to get folks out to the men's basketball game. He was just in the student section the other night when they played Texas Tech. So I'm liking him so far. He's making his tour, and you'll probably stop with us and possibly get an interview with him ourselves. So it's very excited for that. But to move on, let's not waste too much more time because it is transfer portal season. Coach Prime said there would be changes after they lost to Kansas State that dropped them to 3-9 last season, and there have been tons. 36 transfers out, which had us very, in a frenzy with some notable names like Tawfiq Byer at safety, Omarion Miller at wide receiver, and alike. But there have been over 30 transfers in. I mean, probably some while we were recording this podcast. Who knows? As the window closes Saturday night, it's been very hectic with now the one window as opposed to the spring window in addition to now. So they're really making an effort to bring in every need they can. There's still technically over 30 spots left. Um, but yeah, for the defense, I think that's been their big focus. And they brought in two 4 stars among those transfers, Boo Carter at safety, Raymond Fontenette from Vanderbilt at safety. They brought in 10 defensive linemen and 4 linebackers as well. But Leo, I want to get to you. Who have been your favorite transfers so far?
I mean, there's a lot of notable ones, Harrison. You talked about the defensive line. I think that's an area they got a lot better and really needed to. So many different guys that you could really point out. But one that was a more earlier commit that I think is going to be very interesting to see was Lamont Lester. All right, not too much stats on him coming from one of those lower level schools, but so much production, such an athletic guy who can come out and play on the edge. I'm excited to see what he could bring. And he talked about the linebacker room, an area that again was another struggle of this defense in stopping the run. They went out and got from Texas, Harrison. Um
Leona Lethal.
no,
That's
no, no,
actually
thank you.
the third 4-star transfer. I was mistaken. So
Yes.
three 4-star transfers per 24/7 Sports as that those rankings go, but plenty of solid names so far on the defense.
Yeah, 100%. And then you look on the offensive side, you bring in the new OC, Brennan Marion, who I'm very excited to see what he can do. That's definitely one of the other changes as well, Harrison. But you got two of his guys from Sacramento State that are going to know his system come in. That's going to be very interesting to see. But Danny Scudero, that's kind of the big name at wide receiver coming in, Harrison. So much receiving yards, over 1,200 last season, 10 touchdowns. This guy knows how to find the end zone. I think that's just more explosive depth in the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, they've brought in plenty of good slot receivers, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the changes that Brennan Marion will bring to the offense at any position. You talk about running back, they were able to keep the majority of that room. You saw Dallin Hayden go out, but Michael Welch will return alongside some of these Sacramento State guys, like you mentioned, Damian Henderson, Jaquale Smith, and that should bring some explosiveness to the backfield because, he does the go-go where there's two running backs to the quarterback side and for Julian Lewis, this will be a very fun offense to play. I think he's going to have some excellent route runners. You talk about receivers and route running. You talk about Cam Perry, an extremely productive name at Miami, Ohio. He's one of my favorite transfers on the offense. But if we're talking defense, I know you mentioned the D line. I like Santana Popper from Tulane a lot. I think he was an all conference defender in the Sun Belt, all conference in American, and now coming to the Big 12. I like that name a lot. Ezra Christensen from New Mexico State, I think will also be a big presence on the interior. And you mentioned the FCS guys, Balansama Kamara, coming from U Albany, where Jared Verse started his college career. So definitely having some lineage, back to a school that could produce some future NFL names as, Deion Sanders loves to produce those NFL talents. And I think this transfer portal class is loaded with guys with potential at the next level.
I think you're
And
definitely right,
yeah, go
Harrison,
ahead.
on that regard, 100%. And I think you look at these guys as well. These are leaders. These are guys who are part of cultures at the previous school that they were at. And not only are they on the field, but they're the guys who you want in that locker room to help build a culture at CU. I know that's been one of those words that's been lacking the last couple of years, and you want to see that built upon. The fight song, there's so many different metrics of that, of what it means to be a Colorado Buffalo. Harrison. So you're just hoping that the guys you are bringing in are going to come in and help build and mold that culture. But one more guy I want to talk about from UNC, Fisher Clements coming over as a tight end. I just had to shout him out because, UNC's in state Colorado and he had a pretty good year to be able to move up.
Yeah, I mean he's one of the more underrated names. I remember that kind of went under the radar, but he is 6'7" and 265 pounds. That could be a big target for Brendan Marion to use in the offense. Didn't use tight ends a ton at Sacramento State, but has history with plenty of other receiving rooms and definitely could have some influence with Zach Atkins coming back and the like. And one more name I also want to mention when you mentioned leaders, the first name and my mind shot to was Gideon ESPN Lamprey from Bowling Green. He was a captain there. So
Yep.
the linebacker Tyler Martinez from New Mexico State. But Lamprey, one of the best linebackers and best producers at the Group of Five level. And I think he'll be an instant plug and play starter alongside Lefau, like you mentioned, from Texas. Both guys excellent against the run, a little bit to be desired against the pass, especially on Lefau, but they're guys that have really good experience both in as productivity and within some high level of pedigree locker rooms. So I like him a lot. Brandon Fonnet was a captain on Vanderbilt. They just had their best season in program history. That will be a massive addition to, I guess, maybe the nickel spot. He could play with Boo Carter in that. But Carter, a guy that Deion Sanders has wanted for ages. He's been recruiting him since he was coach at Jackson State and then nearly came to Colorado out of high school, ended up choosing Tennessee. And that's maybe the one little area of concern where he had some issues off the field where, Deion Sanders loves to talk about, high, discipline and with character. That's one question mark in that position. Um, but overall, I think this class is full of really high character guys, really productive guys, and guys that will make an impact right away, especially with how some of these position groups had max exoduses, like that D line where they were left with like one player. So yeah, it's it's going to be really fun to watch these guys develop, and there's still so many to come with spots to fill. So I wanted to keep it moving. If you still see some room for improvement in this transfer portal class, where do you see it, Liv?
Yeah, I think they definitely patched a lot of holes, Harrison. I think you still want to have a little more depth in that linebacker room. We saw so much last year. Just how much rotation, guys go down. You want a little more versatility. Maybe a guy can do a little more pass coverage, so you have that option as well. But looking at the offensive side of the ball, we haven't spoken much about the offensive line. I know they're kind of have a lot of guys that they feel are ready to step up and play that are returning from this past season, but still, you always want depth. You always need more tackles. I mean, we've seen so quickly, you could lose two, three guys like that in college football. It goes fast, Harrison. And especially with the go-go offense, these guys are going to need to be in shape. They're needing to be fast, getting to the point of the ball, following the ball, being moving around the field. That's what these offensive linemen are going to have to do in this offense. So you'd like to see a little more depth there.
Yeah, I agree with the offensive line point. Marion's offense was known for its physicality. It had the second best rushing total in FCS. And when you look at the interior of the line, there's not a lot of newcomers so far. But then you see a guy like Yaya Atia, a guy like Chauncey Gooden, as maybe they're looking to them to step up and find a starting position and then dominate through that. I know we mentioned Zarian McGill maybe trying to get an extra year of eligibility to come back at center. That would be huge for the Buffs to find that stability at center because he was an excellent presence there. But yeah, I think offensive line still might need some depth. But as well as I think at the secondary, I think they added some corners and one from James Madison, Justin Eaglin, and then bringing in Emery Floyd from Appalachian State last night. So I think they have some names there, but cornerback was a significant weakness last season, and they need someone they can really rely on in that position. I've heard some rumblings of maybe some higher profile names that could get in that spot, but for now, I think cornerback is my desired position just to find some depth. I don't want to see RJ Johnson trotting out there. I'm just saying. I don't want to see him or Makari Vickers on the field much at all next season. So I think that will be important to find that kind of guy you always rely on against a team's best receiver.
That's a
So
phenomenal point. You
yeah, keep
lost,
going.
DJ McKinney, like you're talking about Harrison. That's big shoes to fill, and you always need depth. It's kind of like that offensive line position as well. It's really hard to be an elite cornerback and an elite offensive lineman. So having those kind of players, you can't afford to lose them, and you want the guys stepping up to be almost just as good, like 80%, right? You need that depth, so that's a very good point.
Yeah, and I think I just one last point on maybe what they've gotten right so far is the quarterback room looks really stable. I mean, you have Lewis, who's going to provide so much as just knowing you're going to have him at quarterback going into the season. But then you bring in a guy like Isaac Wilson, who's proven some as at Utah as a viable starter if, injury were to occur. And then you bring in some recruiting names as well. I know that the Sweet Wine from he was kind of a three-star prospect from Utah. So I think that could add some to the quarterback room. But you're going into the season with Julian Lewis as your guy, and then you just have to fill out those pieces around him. Ernest Campbell, a super speedy receiver, and then like I said with Cam Perry, with Danny Scudero. Scudero was the nation's leading receiver last season, so that's a pretty good find in my opinion. So. Anything more you wanted to add just about the portal class and your outlook on it?
No, I think I was actually very impressed, Harrison. I know I hate to get so optimistic so early, but I think Colorado definitely filled needs on this roster that they had. And I think when you look at a production standpoint, they definitely matched or improved the production that they had from last season's team in a lot of different position groups and statistical categories. I think that should help them on paper, Harrison. But we understand that, you still got to gel, you still got to get the spring ball, you still got to make it to August healthy, but it is a good start for Colorado.
Yeah, and I think one aspect of this one portal window that could help is that they have now the entire rest of the offseason to gel. They don't have to bring in 10 more names in the spring where then they're coming in at different points and then having to kind of get to know each other more quickly than they would versus having almost an entire year. We have 8 months till they kick off the season. So they're going to have a lot of time together with the new coaches. I think Brendan Marion has done an amazing job of recruiting and bringing in guys that will fit his system. And I think these will be like-minded players that can really benefit the Buffs in the future. So yeah, if we're going to keep it rolling into basketball, I know we talked a lot about the football team, and we'll have plenty more on the way in these next coming weeks. But we have basketball going on right now. Big 12 play is truly heating up for both the men's and the women's Buffs.
Yes.
And the men's team has been a pleasant surprise. They are 2-1 in conference play after a very, very close loss to Texas Tech. 12-4 overall. Isaiah Johnson is the best bench scorer in the nation, up there in an offensive rating. The team has looked good in many areas, especially compared to last season when you saw just 2 wins in all of conference play, or 2 or 3. And you're looking at a lot of improvements. But who has or what has about this team impressed you the most so far?
I mean, it's just the attitude, Harrison. First of all, this team doesn't really have quit. We've seen a lot of times this season where they've been down and they've had to fight their way all the way back, and they've gone to the point where they've won these games. I know they weren't able to eke one out against Texas Tech, but just the fact that they're competing, they're going down to a last second, the last minute of these games against these top tier teams, that's so much improvement. It's so much fight. And then you just look at the depth of the young roster, Harrison. They didn't have depth. When you take your starters out and you're bringing in Isaiah Johnson off the bench, you're still getting a lot of offensive value. You're still being able to score the ball. Last season, they just didn't have that. When you took out Bengodak, you took out Sebastian Ranchik, the offense really just went stagnant, and then teams were able to start coasting over them. Now Colorado has the firepower to keep shooting back when they need to give their starters rest, and it just really makes the team a lot more versatile.
Yeah, I think the maturity overall, despite this team being very young and growing together, their maturity has kept them in so many games that you would see them lose last season, especially in non-conference play. They suffered some, runs against teams like Washington and teams like San Francisco. And while they haven't had like a truly, oh, this is a statement win, yet. I think they're well on their way to finding one because they have a guy in Isaiah Johnson who, even when he's playing off the bench, will have a half where he goes scoreless on 3 shots. He'll come out and score 20 the next half. He'll have, all that intuition to not get down after a rough patch of play. I think Barrington Hargis has been a really important addition as well. He's been the playmaker of this team, leading the team in assists at 4.8 and a consistent scorer, just the guy that can get you 15 a game, was brought in to get buckets. But I think he's kind of taken on a different role with his team where he's playing defense. He's becoming more well-rounded in Tableau's, coaching him into an all-around player that's helped the Buffs as well. But then you mentioned the freshman, Alon Michelli, has been excellent so far, averaging near 10 a game, 5 rebounds off the bench. And that's big because the front court has been kind of the weakness of this team. The rebounding has been
Yeah.
really poor at times. Elijah Malone, again, just disappointing in the center position. No other really way to go about it. Just a disappointment coming from Grace College 2 seasons ago. But Michelli has helped, and I think Bangot back is playing the best basketball of his life. He came in with only, I think, one career triple or one career double double, and now he's had 2 in the last 3 games. So he's had 13 rebounds, 12 rebounds, 10 rebounds in when starting Big 12 play. He had 10 and 10 against Portland State, 15 and 11 against Washington. He's a guy that can really help when your team needs it the most. He's able to swat shots still, able to have those highlight reel plays, but again, becoming a little bit more of a well-rounded player than years past. And I think that's been a huge benefit to the team. Sebastian Rankic still putting up buckets, still able to find some rebounds here and there, becoming a solid player. Needs to work on his efficiency a little bit, but overall, you can see this team come into its own every night.
Yeah, and of
And
course.
yeah,
Oh,
go ahead.
sorry. I was just gonna say you still got Felix Casares, who's tasked with guarding the best offensive player for the opponent every night. So as much as the offensive stats may not reflect his skill set, what he does on the defensive end is so pivotal for Colorado, and it just really is where they need to continue to improve as well. Harrison, I know you. Sorry to jump the gun a little bit. I know you kind of want to hop into that, but I just wanted to shout out Felix and what he's been able to provide for this team as well.
Well, yeah, and I think what I was going to say next is the defense was a real concern to start the season. And even in the Big 12 opener against Arizona State, having to score 95 on the road, I mean, still having that road win is great, but giving up 89 is not like you want to see. But then you only allow 39% shooting to Utah at home. And then you limit Texas Tech to 71 points. I mean, they're coming in as one of the better offenses in the nation with JT Toppin, with Christian Anderson uh, ascending as a force in that offense, but you limit them. They got them in foul trouble. Isaiah Johnson becoming one of the best foul drawers in the nation,
Yes.
and I think his relentlessness attacking the basket has given Colorado so much, and just the ability to generate rim pressure opens up the entire offense. But for him, it's been a lot of free throws and getting to the line, slowing the game down, and allowing the defense to recuperate. And like you said, with Casares, he's been huge as a starter, which has allowed Isaiah Johnson to come off the bench and bring that energy he does every single night. But yeah, Texas Tech was such a promising performance after it looked like this was the crash down to earth that everyone was thinking was coming. They were down 50 to 28 and only about 13 minutes to go in the game. But then you just see them get it together, go on the run, and they're right there. And they don't let teams blow them out at home, even last season when they were bad, but this was a real impressive result, regardless of the final score. So yeah, I think that's what's impressed me the most is just their resilience and their maturity. But what has kind of still worried you? I know we kind of touched on their weaknesses that have still been going on, but what still do you think may hold them back from being truly viable this season?
Yeah, you got to be able to attack the glass, especially, and it's allowing offensive rebounds, Harrison. And those games where it's close and they're losing, they're giving up too many chances for their opponent to get up more shots on them and have that. Their guards need to be a little more aggressive. I know Isaiah Johnson's actually, it's insane how many rebounds he gets for being as little as he is and coming off the bench. But you do need more production from your forwards, like you mentioned, and Elijah Malone, those kind of guys who are back there. But and then just continuing to work on those screens, passing them off, fighting through them. That seems to get Colorado a lot of the times. But there definitely have been those improvements, like you mentioned, Harrison, over the last couple of games. You just hope that since can be sustained. And it's definitely about the mentality and the attitude, right? Defense is a thing where you got to have the want to. You got to come out and impose your will on someone and be physical. And Colorado has shown they can do that at times, but they need to do it a lot more consistently.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said. If you told me this season that Isaiah Johnson would only be averaging one rebound less than Elijah Malone, I'd say you're crazy. But it really has been a struggle for him, even though he's been starting to really have any impactful games. He did start the season kind of strong, had some good performances early, but especially since conference play started, he's been unplayable in the clutch, and thankfully they have Dak and they can put Michelle in there to kind of subside that. But then that gives you kind of a strength disadvantage where Michelle isn't the tallest guy at 6'9", and Bang Out Dak isn't the strongest guy. While he'll still get boards, he may not be
For
able
sure.
to, you know, outbox or box out those stronger Big 12 bigs. So I think the rebounding is the key right now if they want to really make this into a season where we're going from, oh yeah, they'll be last place in the Big 12 again to possibly making March Madness. So that's going to be really interesting to see.
And hey, credit to Elijah. I know he's kind of struggling right now, but he did have that shoulder injury just a couple of
Yes.
weeks ago. That's kind of been, limiting him. I know he's fighting through that one a lot there, Harrison. So he's battling, but admittedly, you still need more production for your rebounding.
Right, and I think they also just don't really have a ton of options in the front court off the bench. You have two freshmen, Boaz, Taco. He hasn't played much this year, and Van what was his
Listen, I
name?
know Van Helswick.
And Ellswick. I don't think he's played one at all.
No, he's redshirting.
Yeah, he's redshirting the season. And then you have Nick Randall as a possibility. He's 6'8", but he's kind of another guy that he's not on scholarship, I don't think, and he's just a bench warmer. So there really isn't a ton of options besides Elijah. And when Chad couldn't really find one in the portal, I assume he went with them, and I think he still has some strengths about him that can lead to his improvement later on in the season once you see him get healthier, especially like you said. But yeah, I'm looking for more from him. I'm looking for a little bit
Certainly.
more from some of those veteran players like Hargis, even though he's been solid, just to continue to play as well as he has been. and put together consistent games. And also Isaiah Johnson putting together a consistent 40 minutes because most of these games have gone like he'll have one half that's great and then one half that's not so great. So that'll be important for Colorado to get some wins.
For sure.
So I want to move on to the women's basketball team, and before we wrap things up, I know they're 11-6, 2-3 in Big 12 play. Just suffered a loss, two straight losses to Baylor and Oklahoma State. It's been a little bit of a struggle this season so far. They came in with a really exciting transfer portal class with a lot of guys that were all conference defenders and guys, players that could really put together offensive creation. I think was the biggest thing was finding creators on offense, and I think they did on paper. But so far, not really scoring the ball like you'd want, not shooting the ball well at all. But what have been your kind of biggest takeaways? Even though there have been those struggles, there have been some bright spots.
Yeah, they've been a little beat up, Harrison, but one thing you've talked about is you at least have, you're getting consistent play out of your guards and they're able to score. Um, just the volume isn't the greatest, right? And I think that's kind of why this team has struggled a little bit. There's not one person who kind of is carrying the load or even averaging more than 11 points per game. But there are plenty of, gals who can get to the rim, who can finish, who can play aggressively, and that can complement each other. We've seen them be able to, beat out inferior opponents when it comes to it, like in the Boise State game early on, Harrison. But I
How's
think there's a lot to like about this team, but they're still just trying to play together and deal with injuries and manage, the college basketball landscape.
Yeah, I mean, you can make the argument that they've been in every game they've played this season. And
Yeah.
even when they go on the road, last season they didn't have a single win in Big 12 play on the road. These past two games, both being away from the CU Event Center, they're right there with a 16th ranked Baylor team that is an offensive engine with Talia Scott, but they held them to 56 points. And then Oklahoma State, a really good shooting team, just 63 points. So you're right there in those games, but the clutch time has left something to be desired. You go back to the beginning of the season, same thing. Louisville, 22 in the nation, but couldn't quite find a win there. Now Louisville's ranked ninth. So you look back at that game and you're really, maybe liking that, this is a team that was really great and we competed on the road, but regretting some of those decisions late in games. I'm really looking for more from the player who was supposed to be the centerpiece of this team in Jane Masagayo. She struggled this season, just 9.9 points a game, 4.9 rebounds. Did come into the season dealing with a knee injury. So like you said with Malone, Masagayo's dealt with some health issues as well. So that's been a little bit of a struggle for her. She's played a little bit sloppy on the defensive end, but I still think she has time to tighten it up with the health being a factor. Kennedy Sanders is a big loss for this team, no matter how you slice it. No matter what you think of her as as a shooter, as an actual viable point guard for a starting caliber tournament team, she was a solid force to start the season and had some real potential coming in from last season. But now she's out for the season with a hip injury, going through surgery for that. Claire O'Connor has been out for a while. That's another significant loss. They're hoping to get her back as some source of shooting because this team only shoots 25% from three. There hasn't been much improvement at all. There's only one player that has been a viable shooter, and that's Desiree Wooten. And that's the only player that plays more than 14 minutes a game that is shooting over 20, 25%. So you're looking for more shooting and more 3-point generation from a lot of these players like Logan Greer, Ziana Walker, NALD taught a little bit. But yeah,
Hey, she's balling though. I know she's balling though. Even she gets
not
that.
gonna. No, I'm not gonna ask too much more from Dutot because she's been arguably the best transfer addition this season with her defensive energy and her rebounding, averaging 8.8 a game and a double-double machine so far. So Dutot's been great. She's averaging the most minutes on the team and has been just rock solid in a lot of these big moments for Colorado.
Correct. Yeah, I wanted to give her flowers there for a little bit real quick because talk about things that have impressed me with this team. She's definitely one of those, coming in. AD, as they call her, real physical, can impact on the floor, and just be a fun player to watch.
Yeah, and the front court has done well, other than with some of Masagayo's struggles, she's impacted very well. Logan Greer has done very solid as a freshman, having being asked of a lot. It hasn't been perfect. She still probably needs to muscle up to compete in the front court with how she kind of plays on the interior. But she has a really nice jumper. She has a really nice jumper, and that's what this team needs: jump shooting, pretty badly. And then you get Tabitha Betson back, and that was
Yeah.
pretty unexpected. That was pretty unexpected, and that was a player that left the program in the summer, and weren't really expecting to get her back. But out of nowhere, late in conference play, she comes back and she's been okay. She's been pretty solid. She's made her threes. She's probably looking to expand her role as the season goes on, as she had last season. She was probably projecting to be a starter coming into now. So yeah, she's been good. Jade Crook has been a decent bench big, as well as Sophie Zadell in spurts. So I think there have been a lot of bright spots, and I think the
Yeah.
most impressive part to me is how they've just competed against everybody, and they haven't let any games really get away from them, other than Texas A&M when they played in Hawaii, and they played 3 games in 3 days. So that was one where, okay, you had some fatigue and things like that set in. So overall, this is a solid team. Is it a tournament team? I'm not really sure, but they have a really big prove it stretch coming up. Iowa State, Audie Crook's coming down this Wednesday.
Dang. That's gonna be a good one.
Yes, very good. Iowa State coming off 3 straight losses, so they're vulnerable. They're going to be a team to watch, but they're still extremely talented. Audie Crook's arguably the best player in the nation this season so far, so it's going to be interesting to see how Colorado decides to defend her.
Yeah, but gonna be exciting either way, Harrison, to see that matchup. And for Colorado, like you said, I think they just need to continue putting games together. They need to get more comfortable with each other. And as this move forward, you got to take it game by game. Just try to win the next one. That's all you can do at this point of the season, and keep trying to get better.
Yeah, I think the road woes have maybe been what they needed to kind of get together. So these 2 games, they can learn their lessons and they could come in at home, possibly pick up a big win, and then you go on the road to UCF. That's probably a game you can win on the road if we're talking like Baylor and Oklahoma State. That's the upper echelon of the conference. UCF is not. So that's a winnable game, and you come back, you play Oklahoma State, and then the Kansas schools on the road. Those will be pretty big in terms of
Yep.
getting together a resume for March Madness if they want to make it back after missing last season. But overall, I think this is a solid team. Both basketball teams impressing in different ways so far. And if you had anything more to add?
No, I think it's a pretty good basketball season so far for both teams. You like to see, the teams competitive at the end of the day, Harrison. Regardless of the win-loss outcome, the games have been entertaining, been fun to watch, and you really do see the effort and the care from the athletes.
Yeah, and I think that can be heightened by what we talked about in the beginning. Fernando Lovo coming in as the new AD. If he can get them some more NIL funding, I think that can help, because these are teams with really good foundations, with really good coaching, and with good mental fortitude.
Yeah.
So you just have to retain those players. I think retaining is big for the men's team, with Isaiah Johnson, with Michele, with Dak and Ranchik. You have the core that you think can get you to where you want to be. The future is right there, so you really retain. And then for the women's team, it's there's a lot of players that have plenty of eligibility years left in them, so retaining is big, but also finding some big recruits. I know they were in the mix for Brianna Crittenden just a few months ago, one of the best recruits in the nation in Colorado. So that's big for them to maybe increase their presence there.
Definitely.
Yeah, yeah, I really enjoyed this first podcast. I know we're just kind of getting our feet wet, so we'll have more coming soon. We'll have some guests,
Certainly.
some really maybe some fellow SBS members as well. We'll get that started. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. This has been the Sko Buffs SportsCast, episode 1 of 2026, and we will see you guys later.